The next paper is renal disease and congestive heart failure are risk factors for urgent endovascular repair in patients under active surveillance for thoracic and thoracoabdominal aortic aneurysms, presented by Jonathan Krebs. Senior author is Dr. Cooper, University of Florida.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Krebs. I'm a general surgery resident at Florida. Thank you for the opportunity to present. We have no relevant disclosures. This is a rapid fire presentation. I'll jump right in. Anecdotally, in our practice, we had noted an increased number of patients that had been undergoing aneurysm surveillance, but then presented either prior to a planned elective intervention or non-electively for repair. So we designed this study to better understand who these patients were, and then in a broader sense, how patients that undergo non-elective repairs do clinically. So with that in mind, the primary objective was to compare outcomes between patients that underwent elective versus non-elective endovascular repair for descending thoracic aortic or thoracoabdominal aortic aneurysms, with a secondary objective to better understand both the surveillance patterns and risk factors for non-elective presentation. In order to answer this question, we did a review of our center's endovascular experience for repair of these aneurysms from 2011 to 2020, and then used univariate and Kaplan-Meier methods as appropriate. Two important definitions that we defined for our purposes. The first was non-elective repair. So this included any patient that underwent a repair that was either directly admitted from to the operating room or from clinic or from the emergency room. So this included mostly patients that underwent urgent repair, but also some emergent and then expedited repairs. And then the second definition that we defined for our purposes was active aneurysm surveillance. So this included any patient that had aneurysm-directed imaging with an associated telephone encounter or clinic follow-up within 12 months of presentation. Our primary endpoints were mortality, and our secondary endpoints in hospital complications and non-home discharge. When looking at our demographics, you can see that out of a total of 440 patients that met inclusion criteria, just under a quarter of these underwent non-elective repair. Those that underwent non-elective repair were more likely to be Black and were more likely to be of self-pay or Medicaid insurance status. When looking at their comorbidities, those that underwent non-elective interventions more likely to have underlying baseline renal disease, congestive heart failure, or hypertension, and those that had elective repairs more likely to have had a prior aortic intervention. When looking at their aneurysm classification, it's important to note the trend towards more proximal disease in the non-elective cohort, which makes sense based on the emergent nature of these presentations and their ability to be repaired endovascularly. Looking at our primary endpoints, mortality at 30 and 90 days was worse in the non-elective cohort at 14 versus 3% and 17 versus 5%. This survival curve depicts that difference. The second survival curve, we excluded in-hospital mortality, so we wanted to make sure or see whether or not it was patients that died in-house that was driving this difference. And you can see that even in patients that made it out of the hospital, mortality was still worse in the non-elective cohort. When looking at our secondary endpoints, those in the non-elective cohort had longer ICU and total hospital length of stays, increased risk of neurological complications and stent-related reinterventions, and were less likely to be discharged home. So this depicts our subgroup analysis. So we looked at patients that presented non-electively and saw how many of those had been previously undergoing aneurysm surveillance. And there was 40%, so roughly a third of patients that presented non-electively we had previously followed. And when looking at these patients in particular, you can see that they had a higher rate of being self-pay or Medicaid insurance status, and then they had higher area deprivation index. So this is just a composite score based on their home address that indicates they're from an area of increased resource deprivation. When looking at their comorbidities, those that were under active aneurysm surveillance but presented non-electively were more likely to have renal disease and congestive heart failure. Some of the limitations of the study, obviously this is a single center and retrospective study. The two most important limitations, this is a really heterogeneous sample, so included a wide range of aortic pathology. And then we grouped together a wide range of presentations into the non-elective cohort, and that obviously limits some of the clinical applicability of the study, but for the question we were asking, we thought it was important to include all these patients. And then third, there's selection bias associated with this study. If we're talking about aneurysm surveillance, we only included patients that underwent intervention. Some conclusions, so non-elective repairs associated with worse outcomes and survival. And then when looking at patients that were previously being surveilled and underwent non-elective repair, self-payer Medicaid insurance status, renal disease, and congestive heart failure were some of the factors that were associated with non-elective presentation. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
So can you elaborate a little bit? Do you mean by renal disease end-stage renal disease or any kind of renal condition?
So it was a admission creatinine greater than 1.3.
Yeah, I'm curious, why do you think these factors came? I mean, you went to go answer a question, like, why do these patients keep showing up ruptured? So what did you think? I mean, I think the Medicaid thing would make sense if they didn't have access to care, but you're following them, so they do. So why do you think these factors were associated?
Yeah, I think obviously when sicker patients do worse, and particularly patients that you're considering an endovascular intervention, it kind of makes sense that patients with underlying renal disease, if you're worried about putting them into permanent dialysis or something like that, those are kind of our initial thoughts on why those two factors came out.
Nice job. I enjoyed your presentation, but I think you mentioned in your limitations about the heterogeneity of the nature of disease. I think that's a really important thing to really consider and differentiate, because, how many of these were false lumen aneurysms that degenerated after a dissection? Because dissection is a different animal compared to, sort of a fusiform aneurysm that develops in situ. But so I think, the survival, the renal failure, the comorbidities really change with the nature of the actual aortic pathology.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. And again, we did include post-dissection aneurysms, and so they were kind of scattered throughout both groups.
One follow-up question on your bias is geographic bias. Shands is not necessarily in a large metropolitan area that has a lot of patients at risk. So, it's kind of like Ben Starnes presenting their ruptured aneurysm. They have to get there first to be in his database. So how many of those patients were actually in the local vicinity that came in acute with emergent symptoms, and how many were transferred in and therefore passed the test of time to get transferred into Shands?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. And yeah, again, we're kind of a more rural center with a wide catchment area. Of the patients that were being surveilled, so out of those 40 patients, 30 of those had been surveilled by our centers. And then another 10 or so we were able to corroborate through outside records that they were undergoing surveillance. But you're right, we weren't able to really take into account the amount of time that it took for them to get to us.
Great, thank you.